We are going to listen to Mr. Mokgopa. He is talking about the GNU. Let's just take a listen on what he says from his perspective. Obviously, you know him, he speaks in bombastic words. Sometimes hey, I love him, but hey, sometimes the way he speaks, I don't know. But anyway, let's enjoy. Like the video, guys. Thank you.
Some from within the liberation movement who have come out and said, this is a historic reversal. Others have said this is the best thing that the ANC could do. From someone who's working within this government at the moment, do you have any views on, the wisdom of going down this government of national unity route?
Well, of course, the ANC has articulated an official position. So we characterize this as a moment of fundamental consequence. So these are not conditions of our own choosing. If we had our way, we would have been the only ones to run the government, have a simple majority. Well, the question must be asked, how did we end up here? So it's a combination of factors. So in my own calculation, and this is not a formal party position, is that a year before the elections, we give our people the highest intensity of load shedding, the most number of load shedding days. We see the deterioration of municipal water infrastructure. You see the rise in crime. You see record levels of unemployment. You see the failures at Transnet, the ones I've mentioned earlier on. You drive on roads that are just pothole riddled, because some places try open the tap, the quality of water is suspect. Notwithstanding the major progress that we've made. So what I'm saying must not subtract from the aggregate picture, which is essentially major progress that we've made. But I'm just saying all of those people encounter them on the eve of an election. And in fact, it has been an accumulation over time. And then you have some of us in positions of leadership being accused of corruption, some getting convicted, and in fact in some quarters the ANC being synonymous to act of corruption, although it's a very few, but of course it's a public narrative. We can show you a huge number of individuals, very clean, morally upright, people like Comrade Tito. You can mention, I'm mentioning him because we just buried him now. So there are those examples, but it is those exceptions that are undermining and soiling, if you like, what we stand for. And by our own admission, we say that we need to ensure that we were able to drive this renewal program. Our own admission that something fundamentally wrong is happening in relation to the quality of the membership that we are attracting in the organization. It goes far back when 2012, when we talk about the decade of a cadre, and then we continue to refine that and modify that conceptualization, but essentially to say that we need to attract people of the right quality in the organization, committed, selfless, competent, and patriotic, and people who are not going to misdirect public resources, at least those that are deployed. So we make those admissions. And then we go into an election, highly contested, and then there are other subjective factors. So we say that an increasing role of capital to say that this organization must be displaced for one reason or the other. Significant funding to forces that are meant to undermine, if you like, the leadership of the ANC. And of course, then you have this momentum growing, an anti-ANC narrative. But the point I'm making is that fundamentally, some of these things are of our own doing, our inability to deliver as per expectation. And then you go into an election. Our base chooses to say that our allegiance is still with this movement, and we are confident that it's going to self-correct. But I'm not ready to go to the polls. I still believe in this organization. Yes, there are other people who are making noises, but this is an organization of my choosing, and that's why you see turnout being at the levels that were registered. And as a result of all of the above factors, then we register 40% of the electoral vote.
Yeah.
And then we asked ourselves as the NEC, how best do you protect the democratic project? What we characterize as a national democratic revolution, the end state, united, non-racial, non-sexist, prosperous, democratic society. Those features should exist. How best do we protect it? Now, the NDR presupposes an ANC in government, because a lot of the things that we said we'll do relies on an ANC in government. Our ability to exploit the levers of the state and monopoly over policy in favor of the realization of the objectives of the NDR. So then we decide that no, first we can't relinquish leadership of this of the state, because it's central to the delivery of the objectives of the NDR. We identify in the ANC nomenclature the pillars of the struggle. What are these anchors that must drive this? Is the state, the economy, and all of that. We mentioned them. So we're not about to relinquish that. We still want to be in the driving seat, albeit under conditions not of our own making. So we arrive at a calculation that let's bring everyone on board and let's agree on a minimum program, a statement of intent, and then in government it gets to be codified in the priorities. What are those priorities? An inclusive growth and job creation. The second priority, we say, fight the cost of poverty and address the cost of living. The third one, we say, build an ethical, capable, and developmental state. Go and read our manifesto. All of these three priorities are articulated in those 6 priorities of the ANC government. It can't be a sellout position to say I want to have inclusive growth, create jobs, and of course we articulate how that can be achieved. Can't be sellout to say that I'm still predisposed in my policy orientation to look after the poor and ensure of their economic and social progression. And that's why we're talking in the immediate fight poverty, zero hunger, and then get to a stage where reduce the cost of living. The social protection measures. I mean, if you look at the social wage, a combination of cash transfers and non-cash transfers, one of the most generous of any country in the world, by the way. And then a capable, ethical, capable developmental state at the center of this ability to resolve the social challenges, the South African conflict. Is the state is going to help us to resolve that. So the ethical talks about the manner in which it must carry it. Capable, its ability to meet its own objective. Developmental, an assumption that those objectives are progressive and they are in favor of the resolution of the South African question. And then parties agree that no, it's fine, we agree to this. And then, I mean, that can be a sellout position. That's the best you could get under a constrained environment, a politically constrained environment. And in fact, I want to suggest that is a masterstroke. As Comrade Zamani makes the point in his very colorful way. He says, President Ramaphosa went out to hunting for a rabbit, he came back with a buffalo. Now, I'm not suggesting that these are ideal conditions. Of course, internally there's going to be friction. It's in the nature of this space. First, it has not matured. We get into ourselves in this space. It's naturally going to be that conflict, and we can see that characterized by the various parties' attitude towards Bela, towards the NHI. But we are agreed that we must fight crime. We are agreed that the economy must grow, it must be inclusive. We are agreed that we need to get people into jobs, and we ensure that these are high quality jobs, and we must improve the skills of the South Africans. The South Africans. We must agree we need to ensure that the development is equitably distributed. It's not concentrated in our major economic centers of Gauteng, parts of KwaZulu-Natal, in particular eThekwini, Cape Town, and leave everyone out. We are agreed that women and young people have a place in this country, and we need to advance the interest of women. So I'm just saying there are huge areas of agreement, and then people choose to profile those areas of disagreement. They are invariably, it's an inherent contradiction. And in fact, I'm of the view that contradictions build momentum. So what we will find confidence building measures, but there's a minimum program on which we agree. Execute that. I mean, we are agreed that the lights must be on, so there's no confusion there. That if you have these record levels of unemployment, it's just going to sue conditions of discontent. So there's going to be a groundswell of grievance that can undermine the security of this country. So it's an emergency. We are all agreed on that. So I'm not about to suggest that everything is perfect. It will be a height of folly, but there's progress that we are making. That's the point I'm making.